Video One is proud to share the story of Gary Wilmington, a true blue Aussie battler who made his mark in the fiercely competitive world of Australian production car racing. Gary's journey is a tale of perseverance, ingenuity, and passion as he transformed an unlikely candidate, a Jaguar XJS, a luxurious Grand Tourer with a V12 engine, into a race-winning machine. On a shoestring budget, Gary sourced a wrecking yard body shell and a batch of second-hand ex-warranty Jaguar engines. With sheer determination and relentless hard work, he built a series of steadily improving power plants, culminating in a car capable of dominating on the track. His achievement was nothing short of extraordinary, showcasing what can be done with great perseverance, creativity, and minimal resources. Unfortunately, this incredible story was cut short by a change in regulations that made the car ineligible for its racing category. After years in storage, the once-abandoned racer was resurrected by Tony Pallas, a passionate enthusiast. Tony lovingly restored the XJS and brought it back to life, where it now thrives in the popular historic racing scene. Let's hear Gary's story in his own words, a testament to the spirit of determination and the enduring legacy of this iconic race car.
Gary, you've had a great deal to do with racing XJSs. Tell me, what brought this on? How did it all start?
Well, XJSs, I wanted to race an XJS because, I'd raced Falcons and Fords forever. And then when we went to the Group A class, away from Group C, I looked at all the different cars that you could run, and to me, the best car to get was a Jaguar XJS because A, they had electronic fuel injection, B, they had a full aluminium V12 with, forged steel crank and rods, and they had all really good internals, and they were actually, everybody said to me when I first got it, this is going to send you broke. But it was actually the cheapest, probably one of the cheapest cars I could race because there was so much stuff that you could buy second hand for them.
Yes.
And you didn't have to go and buy Corello rods and steel cranks and all that to make them reliable because they already had all the good gear in them. So it was just a matter of, like when you did an engine, port the heads, put a set of valve springs on them, and give them a tune-up, and away they went.
So essentially, in those days, in that particular category, they were largely standard spec cars with a few minor modifications allowed.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. So where did this particular car come from? How did you find it?
Well, we got a shell. I just got a shell from a wrecker, and then we built the car from nothing, we built it from the ground up totally.
Right.
Yeah.
So what sort of shape was the shell in when you got it?
Very ordinary.
Yeah.
It's like everything we've built, it starts out very cheap, and
yes.
then you spend the money. I mean, I was lucky to buy a heap of JRA warranty engines from over at Milperra that had little problems. So, we had a few engines, so I bought them super cheap off them and took them home and rebuilt them, and they turned out to be very good engines.
So this was a real shoestring budget job there.
Absolutely shoestring. People would never imagine how much of a shoestring budget it was.
So how many engines did you finish up with?
We had sort of about 3 or 4 engines that we were rotating around, that we were playing with the different types of configurations with different camshafts and different pistons, and we did a lot of work. We did a lot of different cylinder head porting and stuff to find out what worked and what didn't work, but they were great engines. I loved them.
I see. Well, it's fair to say that Jaguar engines generally do get a bit of a bad rap from certain parties, which is a bit unwarranted. But you're telling me that this was a particularly reliable engine to use.
100% reliable. We never really ever had any engine trouble. They never leaked oil, and they always went well. I mean, we were in the early days, we were revving the V12 to over 8,000 revs, which
wow.
is pretty good for a big V12 engine.
Sure is.
Yeah. And the thing's never overheated. I mean, we had a good radiator, we had a good oil cooler, and they're fantastic. And we had a major problem with diff oil temperature, with the diff being right in, until we went to the outboard rear brakes. Once we went to the outboard rear brakes, that got all the heat away from the diff, and that fixed the problem. But originally we had a gauge in the diff when we first started racing it, and melted the solder on the capillary gauge, so that
That's
yeah.
pretty hot.
It was very hot. Yeah.
It's amazing that it stood up to it, frankly.
Yeah.
And in terms of the history of these vehicles, I believe the first car that was really raced big time belonged to a fellow by the name of Mark Trenaueth.
Yeah.
And evidently you're familiar with this car.
Yeah, I am. I had a bit to do with it. I had a drive in it one day at Amaroo and a test day, and I actually raced it with the Jag Club in the 6-hour relay race at Eastern Creek.
Now,
Lovely
did
car.
you, well, this was really early days for that particular car. Were there any particular lessons that you learnt from that vehicle or had contact with Mr. Trenaueth at the time?
No, most of the stuff in that was pretty different to our car, because it was a transaxle with the gearbox and everything
Yes.
in the back of it, and it ran the downdraft Webers on it rather than the fuel injection.
Sure.
It was quite different to our XJS, but it was a beautiful car to drive. It just did everything beautiful.
Well, it was virtually a mid-engine car by the time he'd finished with it.
Oh, it was, yeah.
The engine was right up underneath the dash,
Yeah.
and you virtually sat alongside of it.
Oh, you did. You did. Yep.
So really, there wasn't a lot of lessons to be learnt from that particular car for what you were doing, because it was so different.
Yeah, it was so modified compared with our Jag. Ours was much more standard than that one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, the other fellow that used to race V12s was Bob Tullius from America. Did you ever have anything to do with him?
No, I didn't. No, I never. I knew a bit of stuff that he was doing and stuff, but that was, yeah, I never had any contact with him.
Now, when you were building this car, did you have any contact with John Goss, who was also into XJSs?
Not really, no. Brad, that used to work for John, had a bit to do with me as well. Brad was sort of good mates with me, and we learned a little bit from what John had done in the past with his Jags, but again, his Group C car was totally different again to the Group A cars.
Yeah.
Because it had like the dry sump, and it was much more modified again. He had the mechanical injection and stuff on the on his Group C Jag. So yeah, and ours being a Group A, it was sort of built all in between it all. So
I see. So what year was it that you actually started building this car, do you recall?
yeah, the basically '84 when we started racing it. The first race for it was the 10th of February 1985 at Winton, the first round of the Australian Touring Car Championship.
Right.
Yeah.
So by then, of course, you would have no doubt kept an eye on what TWR was doing, because they were busily winning the European Touring Car Championship that year.
Yeah, they were, but you know, I rang Tom Walkinshaw a couple of times, but he was very unhelpful. He classified me as opposition, which
Yes.
just a backyard operation compared with what he was doing.
Sure.
I was no opposition whatsoever for him, but he didn't want to sell the Spitz, or he was not helpful at all.
And what about Jaguar Rover Australia, or I think it was at the time, were they interested in what you were doing?
They were sort of interested, but they didn't help us in any way, shape or form, other than sell us some of those, like the warranty engines, which were basically scrap to them. So we were able to buy them cheap off them, which was a major plus for me,
Sure.
because we were able to get stuff which was fairly new. You know, they're all fairly new componentry, so it was good.
So this was a serious DIY job then, very little help from anybody, frankly.
absolutely, yeah,
I see.
yeah.
Okay, and okay, so that's dealing with the engines. What sort of gearbox were you using?
Well, that was another problem. Initially, in the early days, the gearboxes were a real problem because the gearbox that we needed to get was like a Sandcast get drag, and it was extremely expensive, and we just could not afford one. So what I did was went out, and the 265 part numbered BMW 1-to-1 gearbox was basically identical to the one that the Jags were running,
Right.
except it didn't have the Sandcast housing, which was thicker and everything. So,
I see.
but I was pretty lucky because I was able to buy those gearboxes from a wrecker, from a like a European car wrecker. So
Yes.
we could get them pretty cheap. So again, you know, we made our own flywheel, and Dello made me a bell housing, so we were able to put it all together and make it happen.
So at that time, Jaguar were putting the Getrag 265s into the six-cylinder cars. I guess it was the same style of box, or what was the? Was there any big difference between that and the BMW boxes?
Not a lot, no. No, they're pretty close.
I think they also used them in Commodores, didn't they?
They did. They did use them in Commodores, but they had different gear sets in them in the Commodores.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So ideally, from your perspective, the variant that come out of the BMW was the gadget to have.
Yep. Yeah.
I see. And you mentioned the fact that you had outboard rear brakes after a while.
Yeah.
Was that the Jaguar version, or was it a Gary Wilmington version?
Well, it was something that I don't normally copy anything, but at Bathurst in '85, when the Walkinshaw cars were there, our old friend Lance Ruding, the photographer, just happened to be lurking around at the back of the Tom Walkinshaw
Yes.
pit area, and they had one of the diffs out of the car complete, out of their cars. And he managed to snap the shot of it, and gave it to me. So
So that gave you the inspiration.
it did, and John Scholar and Pat Purcell, actually, they copied the photos and duplicated the whole Walkinshaw type outboard disc brake rear end, which worked out very well. I mean, they used the half shafts and stuff from the Mark 10. So there was a lot of stuff again that we were still able to source through older Jaguars and things to make it happen.
Right. Your first race was in February of 1985.
Yep.
What event was that?
That was round one of the Australian Touring Car Championship at Winton.
Right. How did you go?
Well, it was going really good until we had a power steering failure, and the power steering ran out of oil and snapped the pulley off the front of the power steering pump. So, and I ended up oil all under the back tyres, and that spin into what was then turn one at Winton.
Right. I see.
Yeah.
And were you impressed with the car until that happened?
Oh yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. Yeah.
And did you recover during that race meeting, or it was all over by then?
No, that was all over. I didn't get to finish that. Well, we got right up to the main race, and we were in the main race, but that happened in the main race, so we were out of the race, unfortunately.
So what sort of things did you do to make it handle?
We put good springs in it. We put good shocks in it. You know, a lot of little bits and pieces to it, and it handled well. One of the best handling cars I've ever owned.
Well, one of the things that you could get at the time would have been Bilstein shocks, for example. Did you use those, or something else?
Yeah,
Or
no,
were they adjustable or non-adjustable?
No, they weren't adjustable. They were just straight they were Bilstein shocks that we put in it.
Mhm.
They were, but yeah, no, they weren't adjustable. We didn't have those. Didn't have those luxuries.
Not so sophisticated.
No, but K-Mac made me some springs
Hmm.
in Sydney, and yeah, he made us a whole range of all different rates that
Yep.
we were able to put in and trial until we got it where we wanted it.
Uh-huh. Well, I think the heaviest springs I can recall using on an XJS would have been about 1,800 inch-pounds or something. Would that be about the mark?
Yeah. Most of the time we were between 13 and 1400.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's relatively soft.
it is.
And what sort of sway bar?
We actually made the front sway bar was made out of a Peugeot tail shaft.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we cut it off and welded the ends on it and made up the whole thing was made. We made all that in house.
Do you recall what diameter it was?
It would have been about, I reckon it was somewhere around inch and a half, somewhere around there.
Oh, that's pretty hefty.
Yeah,
Because I had one that was 27 mil, and that had improved things quite dramatically. That was for a target car, not a race car. Following February 1985, what was your next event? Well, Amarillo was a pretty tight little circuit. How did the Jag handle that?
yeah, no problem at all. I actually wasn't until 1986 at one stage there I broke the lap record there
Really?
in the first heat of one of the AMSCAR rounds where I beat Jimmy Richards and knocked his lap record off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And was the car still 5.3 litre at that stage?
absolutely.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And what would have been the next event after that?
I think it was Sandown. I think we went down to Sandown. We ran down there.
Right. That's a big open track.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was good at Sandown, but
Well, with the V12s, there's not a lot of room under the bonnet, and they're prone to overheating without too much trouble. What did you do to resolve those issues?
yeah, we basically rerouted the whole water system so that none of it was bypassed like it is in a standard XJS. And we had a good, very efficient radiator, which was a standard style radiator, not much different at all from standard, just was full double pass radiator. And the car never ever overheated.
Right.
As an engine oil cooler, engine oil temperature was a major problem. So we had a oil cooler off an excavator. It was a hydraulic cooler off a excavator
Right.
that was as big as the radiator. And once we put that in, we had no more engine oil overheating problems, and the thing just went like a jet and just kept going.
And where was that mounted? Was it in front of the...
It was in front of the radiator.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Because I have found personally that, you know, the oil pressure can drop off quite dramatically if the oil gets too hot. I guess that was what you were experiencing.
Yeah, but we modified the oil pumps. We used 2 oil pumps and machined one set of gears in half, and then pinned them together, and then machined the housing out because there was plenty of meat in everything in the Jaguar. And then the gear size was half as big again, so we had plenty of oil volume and flow, and yeah, we had no oiling problems at all.
And did you lighten the car in any way?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
What sort of things did you do?
Oh, well, we took all the sound deadener out of it. We took everything, we cut everything out of it that wasn't needed. The big heavy sort of behind the bumpers was all gone. And yeah, I think it was 1,400 kilos or something, I think was the total weight of the car, somewhere around that, but it was pretty much right on the weight limit that it had to be on at the time.
At that rate, you would have pulled 350 kilos out of the car.
Something like that, yeah.
That's a pretty fair whack.
Yeah, because in those days we were still allowed to have, originally, when we built the car, we still had the original aluminium roll cage in it, which saved a bit of weight as well.
Yes. You did run in the 85 Bathurst, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay, how did you go there?
Well, it was good, but we were down on power to the Works Jaguars and stuff like. We finished the race. I think it was about 13th or something like that. We finished, which was, you know, we were there. The car went all day, and it was good.
So what sort of crew did you have with you for an event like that? It's a pretty major undertaking.
Oh, it was, yeah. We had Peter Jansen as the co-driver, and we had some of his guys and some of our guys that were all working on the car, and it was we had a pretty good team.
Well, Peter Jansen is a serious character, isn't he?
Oh yeah, very, very. Yeah.
And he was a pretty good punter, considering he only popped out once a year or so.
Oh yeah, he just jumped in the car and drove it like he'd been driving it every day of the week. He just was just a natural in the car. He was brilliant.
And did you do any other events in '85 that you can recall?
Well, it was mainly the Australian Touring Car Championship rounds and the AMS car rounds at Amaroo. That was mainly what I concentrated on.
Yep.
Yeah, that was. And we went up to Surfers Paradise for the 300k race up there as well.
Okay. And then you also ran, I think, in the Australian Endurance Championships.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
How did you go there?
Yeah, no, it was good. It was all good, sort of positive racing. It was good fun and in a great car.
And then you raced it again in '86.
Yeah.
What did you do that year?
Oh, we went to another level in '86. We just we found a lot more power. A lot of the stuff that we'd been working on, like after Bathurst, we really concentrated a lot on going to the next level with trying to get more power. And we did, you know, more head development work, and and then we went to the later model injection, because originally we were running the earlier injection in '85, which was pretty prehistoric compared with the later model stuff, which we could get a lot more fuel into it. We got the later model computer and we got that modified. Because I'd rang Tom Walkinshaw trying to buy the computer. He wanted $63,000 for it, like in 1985.
Right.
I finally found a guy in Milpura that did computers for $750. He modified it all for me, and it worked magic.
Right.
It's very good.
So it would have been a tunable system by then, because the originals were plug and play, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, the guy that I took it to, he made it where it was adjustable. We could actually adjust the fuel mixture, whereas initially you couldn't touch it.
What compression ratio would you have been running?
We got it up around 12-1 in the end. We got them up there.
And you had the original flathead design, not the maze head.
Yeah, no, we run the original flathead design.
Yeah. Generally speaking, that seems to be the gun thing to have for a race car.
Well, it is. They work better. When you've got the combustion chamber in the top of the piston versus in the head, they flowed well. The valve's not shrouded. They just work well. Those heads work real well.
And how many events do you recall doing in '86?
We done quite a few in '86. We did the endurance championship thing at Oran Park, where we were right up there in the early stages of the race. We were right up there with Dick Johnson and Jimmy Richards. But the biggest problem that I had for that race was they all stopped and put new tyres on. I stopped and put fuel in it, but we didn't put new tyres on it, and then we paid the price.
Yes.
We just didn't have the money to buy the new tyres, so it was just a matter of run what we had.
Sure.
And we had to do that. But yeah, it was good. We We ran it at Sandown at the 500 that year as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one of the events when that was the longer Sandown with all the corners. We did get a bit of oil surge and we did have an engine problem,
Right.
and we had to take our good engine out on the Saturday night and put our lesser engine in for the Sunday for that race, but that was just another story.
And did you ever dry sump it or?
No, you couldn't.
Right.
You couldn't do that with the Group A rules. With
Yeah,
Group
right.
A rules, it was a wet sump.
Yep. Yep. I see.
Yeah.
Did you expand the sump at all, or you still?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, we made big sumps for them and put gates and all that sort of stuff in them. No, the sumps ended up good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I do recall that some of the clever things you could do with the inlet manifold was to split them and put trumpets inside them. I hear tell wasn't necessarily you, but
Yeah, we never ever did that. We didn't. We just ran standard inlet manifolds. We used to spend like a week porting the exhaust manifolds because you had to run the standard manifolds. But we'd port the manifolds, the exhaust manifolds out and bring them where the 4-bolt flange goes on the outside of it. We'd take them right out to that and get rid of all the flange gasket and that and just use silicone on them, and
Oh, yes.
we increased the size heaps. We ran 2 really long primary pipes back, which gave us a lot more torque again out of the V12.
yes, I see.
We did a lot of work on the exhaust and the headers and stuff that picked up a lot of power.
And the diameter of the or the inlet on the manifold, like one of the things you can do is to expand those. I guess you probably did that too.
In the heads, but not in the manifold. We didn't touch the manifolds. We just run them standard. The only thing that we did do was the butterfly had to be a specific size.
Oh, yes.
And we machined it on both sides of it to make it bigger each side. But where it was actually measured, it was the correct measurement.
Oh, I see. Right.
So
Okay.
it,
So that would have had a little Venturi effect there.
yeah, it did. They definitely went better when we did that. Definitely went better.
Yes. Yeah. A little
Yeah.
trick of the trade, eh?
Yeah, well, we didn't stop experimenting with that car.
And did you use the standard fuel tank or a fuel cell, or what was the story?
Yeah, no, we used a fuel cell. We had a fuel cell, in-boot fuel cell,
Was it in the boot itself or in the position?
in the boot.
Right, okay, because
Yeah.
if it's right in the boot, it changes the weight distribution quite a bit.
Yeah, it does, but that's an arguable point that I've had lots of arguments with lots of people over the years where the fuel tank should have been, and I've got my theory and a lot of other people have got theirs, but
Fair enough.
yeah.
Okay, was there any significant events in '86 then that you haven't already mentioned?
Yeah, well, the lap record at Amaroo, we had some good runs at Amaroo. The fact that we were sort of hounding Dick Johnson and Jim Richards in the Endurance Championship at Oran Park was good. That was a very memorable
I'm
moment.
sure. Must have been a real buzz to get up and knock over those big timers
Oh yeah,
with
yeah,
a minuscule budget that
Yeah.
you had.
absolutely. And then at Adelaide, at our second last event in that car, we had a problem where I went over one of the road thingos at the Adelaide Grand Prix event, and it knocked the exhaust onto the steering rack input uni joint, and the steering was locking up, so we actually qualified at the very back of the grid for that event because it happened like in the first lap of qualifying.
Yeah.
So we started last, I think it was about 33rd on the grid or something down there, and worked my way up to 8th and overcooked it and backed it into the wall.
Oh,
So that was, but it was still, I was very happy with it up until then. Like the thing was, it was flying.
well, from going from 33rd to 8th, that's a huge
Yeah.
thing, especially on a street circuit like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was fantastic fun and it was good.
Now, you mentioned that was your second to last race in that car?
Yeah.
What
yeah.
was your last race?
The last race in it was at Oran Park. There was a race there at the end of the year, and that we did that in it. And that was my last race in it.
Yes.
Yeah,
So why did you stop? Why didn't you keep going?
because they changed the rules and it was no longer eligible as a Group A car
Ah.
because it was an inch too short from the steering column to the back parcel shelf. So a Jaguar was no longer eligible as a Group A car.
What a strange
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it was disappointing because all the work that we put into it, only raced it for 2 years,
Yeah.
but it was, we just started to get the thing going and get it really competitive, and we had to stop.
That would have been a serious blow.
It was a very serious blow.
So what happened to the car then?
Yeah, well, it sat around for ages.
I guess it was just an obsolete race car by
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. And then we sort of ran into Tony, and he was pretty keen to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really grateful that someone actually got it that really spent a lot of time and effort on it to make it what it is today, which is an absolute credit to Tony and the boys that work on it now.
Yeah, well, that must be very gratifying, actually, to see your old car still getting out there and mixing it.
Oh, it is, yeah. Yeah, I love seeing it. Yeah.
And have you ever driven it since then?
I did a couple of laps in it at Eastern Creek at one of the Muscle Car Masters. I got in it and I think I did 2 laps in it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I guess that would have been fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Loved it.
This story has a happy ending. Tony Pallas has poured tremendous effort into reviving the old racer, and here he is proudly showing it to Captain Peter Jansen, who co-drove the car with Gary Wilmington in the 1985 Bathurst 1000. Tony has enjoyed great success with the XJS, and he is hoping it continues to be campaigned with passion for years to come.